Today we're going to do a different video. We're going to talk about expectations. You know what? Give me a second. I'm going to turn off my heater. All right. Now that you can hear me, just going to grab a drink. Expectations. So obviously we're going to talk about cars. It's the whole channel. I do this for a living, and it can be fun. We're going to talk a bit about the hobby and that sort of thing. I don't go on camera much. I usually just show what we're doing, and it's just, I don't know. I had a few people say you should put some stuff on YouTube. I got a couple buddies that have channels, and guys that I've watched and interacted with over the years, and they said, oh, you should put more content, you should put more content. So I've been trying to do that. I don't really care about, anyway, that's gone. Yeah, so I'm not going to be some kind of influencer or any of that crap. It's not about money for me. This is what I do for that. I like what I do most of the time. Sometimes you don't get to do things the way you want, and sometimes you do. So we've been having a lot of fun. We're at the point where we can wipe this down, tape it all up. It's booth ready. I'll probably go around, check all the low spots with a flashlight. Basically, we're going to make sure that nothing's shiny because we want the paint to stick. This is just a repaint, which is a good example. So I noticed watching a lot of other channels on mine. I don't have a lot of viewers yet, but I have a few, and I've got a few that reach out and like to comment and talk, and it's pretty positive. But I watch a lot of stuff too. Like when I'm done work at the end of the day, I go in the house. I tend to watch more YouTube than TV because, you know, the way everything is now in the world, TV's kind of, it is what it is. So I watch a lot of shows, and again, it's all this stuff, right? So, you know, I don't know if I can name people. I'd like to, but we won't do that. But there's a bunch of channels. There's a lot of Canadian channels I enjoy. There's a guy in Manitoba, he knows who he is and he's funny. And there's a guy in Saskatchewan, and there's a guy in BC, and there's definitely a guy in Newfoundland. There it is. Anyway, I was thinking Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. Well, there's a guy in Nova Scotia too, now that I think about it. But I got a few friends actually, and they've got channels, so yeah, all over the States. Now, that being said, I watch all their content, and a few of them kind of led me down this path. Now, one guy I'll definitely shout out, well, two guys. You want to shout out everybody, but you should ask permission first. But I mean, you know Arco, he's an anytime guy. Outlaw Edge, Outlaw Customs, check him out. And he'll direct you to a whole bunch of other channels, which is great. But I can tell by how he works in his shop, yeah, it's a business. It's not necessarily, like, he's having fun, but it's not for fun. So that's always good. And it's not for YouTube, it's for him and for us, right? Guys that are serious and do this stuff. And when I had very little content about a year or two ago, he said, you need to do more. We were just kind of chatting on a comment on YouTube somewhere. And I said, well, thanks for checking it out. He goes, yeah, just do more. So I started doing a little more. And there's a good community out there where everybody supports each other. They like each other's videos and all that sort of thing. And that's something that I noticed as well. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I want to give him a shout out. And another guy I'll give a shout out. And he's very interactive with everybody who comments on his stuff. Lakeside Automotive. And Jerry is his name. But he does a lot of YouTube videos that are really good. And he does it from the perspective of how you would do body work, right? So everything depends on the budget of what comes through the door. But everything he does, and I can tell you, I've been doing this for a long time, the way he does things it works, and that's all you have to do. Now that being said, you know, and there's a lot of guys, I know I'm going to be leaving a lot of people out because I can't just sit here and shout out everybody, that'd be weird. But if you look at my channel, when I watch my own video later to check it out or read comments, I often notice that the algorithm will throw up like DD Speed Shop. We'll give a shout out to Dan because he does some really cool stuff. And again, like, he'll tell you, well, I'm no professional, but you don't have to be, right? So perfect example of what we're talking about, expectations, which is a thing. Everything he does saves a vehicle, and I love that, because that to me is a big part of the hobby. You know, bringing home some piece of trash reminds me when I was a teenager, and we go pull something out of the junkyard and bring it home and try to build a car out of it. And sometimes you're successful, and sometimes it became parts. But anyway, if you're thinking about getting into the hobby, muscle cars, classic cars, rat rods, whatever the case may be, and this probably would apply to some degree to pickup trucks, classic trucks, of course, but maybe even off-road, Jeeps, four-wheel drives. Expectations. So when I say that, the first thing you got to do is don't get caught up in the whole. It's like when you're young, right? And you see a girl in school, and you go stupid, right? We've all been there, you know, grade 5, grade 6, grade 10, whenever it happened to you, and you don't know why it happened because you're not like that yet because you're young or whatever, and some girl talks and blushes and you go stupid and you don't know what it is. Anyway, the reason I'm saying that is because sometimes you're scrolling on Facebook Marketplace, you're looking at the Auto Trader, whatever the case may be, or you just happen to go to some garage, some old guy, and he goes, hey, you want to see what I got out back? And, you know, it's amazing what you'll find out there. You're going to walk up to a car, you're going to see a car, you're going to see an ad, and you're just going to get sucked in. Now, the cool thing about that is it's exciting and it's a lot of fun, just like the girl, you know, and you might not even remember her name now, right? But that being said, some cars will do that to you. Now, when I say don't fall in love, what I mean by that is you go look at a car. If the car's cool when you first see the car, because it's sitting just so, and your brain can imagine the stance, and you're already drooling because you can imagine the tires and the wheels and all the stuff you're going to do to the car, right? The problem with that is what you don't see, because when people are in love, they look past the bad. So the whole car that you're looking at, and it may not be this one, this is just what I got sitting in the background, but it's all rotten down here, but everything else looks so good, and the chrome is on it, even though the chrome's bad, stained, tarnished. And the reason I bring that up, I have brought home a lot of cars in my life that I shouldn't have because they were turds. And that's part of the reality. So, getting back on track, expectations. We're going to try to do it, you know, so what I just did there was like the warning, be prepared, because that happens to all of us, because we all get sucked in. It's human nature. It is what it is. We all got hopes and dreams. We all love this stuff. If you didn't love this stuff, you wouldn't be watching me right now. So, expectations. What do I mean by that? First off, you got to decide what you're going to do with the vehicle. Now, it doesn't matter if you want an off-road Jeep or if you want a Camaro, Firebird, you know, Mopar. Expectations. What do you expect it to do, and how much money do you expect to spend? So these things all fall in line. I mean, if you want something for $5,000, $6,000, $8,000, you're not getting much, but maybe you can find like an '82 Monte Carlo. Still a nice, respectable car. You do a bunch of stuff to it. They can become worth money over time. But if you expect something like a 70 Barracuda and you expect it to be showroom tomorrow, obviously money matters, right? So expectations, but also expectations for the money. Choosing a car, well, I always tell people that you got to build something you like, because if you don't, you're not going to be happy with it ever. And that goes for buying a new car. You can go buy a new car, and if it's a lemon and it breaks all the time, you're going to hate it. You're going to hate the car. You're going to hate everything about it. And if you compromised when you bought it, you're going to hate it even more. The same thing is said with a muscle car. Now, let's say you buy a new car and you never have an issue with it. You may not like the car, so maybe you bought a Corolla. And it's not a nice one, it's not a sport, it's just a car that you bought to go A to B. But it's reliable and it's good, right? So you never hate the car. So to some level, you want to find a little bit of that in what you're buying. So don't buy something that's just absurd, right? But everything that we're looking at here, I mean, this car is 55-ish years old. It's old, it creaks, it does things. Most of them do. Now this one's pretty clean. The bottom is good. Everything underneath is sound. It's never been welded underneath. Some of the panels have been filled up and repaired and little patches. You can't see it, but I know it's there. I've been doing some digging. But this is a pretty solid car. It's a nice driver. And all we're doing, it was going to be a repaint, but we're kind of correcting a lot of stuff. We want to make it a respectable driver. This guy just wants something he can pull out on the weekends, rip the tires up and down the street a little bit, and go to car shows, coffee and cars with his buddies, Canadian Tire parking lot, you know, if you want to go to the fair or Canada Day, to the just local car shows. And if you're in the States, obviously 4th of July, but swap meets and whatever you want to do, right? You want to get into the car scene. Are you looking for a driver? And the reason I say that is because the driver is not a SEMA show car. So if we go into something like that, let me put it this way. This car right now, we can clean this, tape it up, put it in the booth. It's ready to go. It's going to be a real nice driver with a nice white paint job. If we were taking this to SEMA, I've got so much work to do, it's insane. To even begin, I don't even know, well, it would definitely be worth doing, but can you afford to do it, right? The whole bottom of the car would have to be, I'm thinking ice blasted, and I say that because there's some kind of undercoating, and there's spots where it's come off, but I mean, either you can go under there, heat it, chip it. Well, elbow grease is cheap, it is, but you got 3 weeks to spend underneath the car scraping it. But if you're talking SEMA, then that wouldn't be good enough. So sandblast or ice blast or whatever you're going to do underneath the car to clean it off. As far as I'm concerned, I think that's a waste of time, because if you drive that car and chip up the bottom after it's painted, it's going to suck. But if it's a little bit of undercoat, and what I did on the Cadillac, actually, the 63 Cadillac, most of the undercoat was still there from the factory. They only put it in 63 in spots around the wheels and whatnot, not the whole bottom of the car. And what I did, we cleaned off anything that was bad and failing, we sprayed some undercoat, and we duplicated what Cadillac did, and then we painted the whole bottom of the floor from underneath the car. And it's going to be nice. But we didn't go crazy. We didn't go with like a crazy expensive product. That guy is going to drive it, although we're taking that car down to the metal. So it's a little more of a restoration. This car, we fixed up the worst. We made it fairly smooth. Took all the little dings and dents, all the chipping, anything that we thought might fail. Now we're going to paint the car. We're expecting to get maybe 10 years out of it. He will get longer, but we want it to look really good for at least that long, okay? Just so that it's understood. This was going to be a repaint at Mako, and a buddy of mine convinced the owner, no, don't do that. Take it to this guy because there's issues with the car and get it fixed. So we did what we could. We're not painting jams, any of that. We're going to make her white again. Single stage, urethane. It's going to be great. It's going to look nice. We're going to throw probably 3 fat coats of paint on the car. We really don't have to. Usually something like this, I'll basically kind of blend over the primer. Now I might seal the primer with a white sealer, but after we do that, we're going to do a tack coat, then we're going to do 2 full wet coats. depending on what I got left in the gallon, because once you mix it up, you get 1.5 gallons of paint out of it. This is not a big car. We'll see. I'm going to do my hood, my trunk lid, the valance, or not the valance, but the cowl cover, and I got a spoiler already in the booth. So tomorrow I'll be painting that. And basically, once I get a feel for how much paint I'm going to use, I'll decide whether I want to put that third fat coat on. So when you got like 4.5 coats of paint on a car, you can easily buff it for years and do all that stuff and shine it. We're putting on a fat paint that's pretty decent. If this was going to SEMA, I'd have to take this all down. I'd fill the whole car, and this is, people don't like that. I noticed the comments on some of the videos you all watch. They'll take it down to metal, the guy in the video, whoever you're watching, then they'll put a bunch of filler everywhere. And the idea is they block right across. Now, I always do that, because I love doing that. I like to block things across. This didn't fit good on this car. I took this down to the metal, from whatever was there. We feathered this off, we filled this in, skim coated the whole thing, and I blocked across. It's still not perfect. When you're standing at the front looking down the car, there's no little edge. It's going to look flat. All those little tricks make things look better. Now, here it sits, the door's a little out. Down here, the door's a little in. We've got it adjusted as far as we can go without getting into major work. We're okay with that. When I say a little, it's a little. But this was not acceptable. There was other stuff on the car that wasn't acceptable. I tell most people when they come looking for a restoration, I basically say, well, let's chat for a bit. And what do you expect out of the car? Most guys want to just drive around and enjoy the car and go to local shows and that sort of thing. So I tell them, you just want a real clean daily driver. And to do more than that, you're spending a lot of money that I don't think you have to. And a lot of people are happy to hear you say, don't spend a bunch of money. Now, sometimes they come in and go, this is what I want, this is how I want it done, and they're particular with what they want. There's nothing wrong with that. I enjoy that. The Cadillac is going to be one of those. This one, look, a normal guy owns this car. He's not a huge car guy who knows much about cars. He always wanted one. Everything else he owns is modern. And he always wanted this car, so now he has it, and he goes, look, I can't tell the difference between quality or non-quality or whatever, so we're going to make this nice, but it doesn't have to be insane. No one's going to look at, like, is it a concourse resto, or is it a high quality show car? Single stage paint, that's all it's going to be. So ask yourself, before you get into it, what your expectations are. And do you love the car, or are you showing off to your buddies? Now, I say that because that's important. A lot of guys do things because they think that other people need to acknowledge that it's good. I'm going to go with this. First off, you got to enjoy it. Whatever it is, it only has to impress you, the owner, at the end of the day. What other people think, like if you're getting into that, you're not going to enjoy this hobby. You're going to hate this hobby. For instance, there's a lot of guys, not a lot of guys, most guys are friendly. You go to the car shows, local car shows especially. Everybody's just happy to look at a cool car. You know, where years ago people were a little bit pickier. That being said, if you start getting picky, people might walk up and say this gap and that corner, and 9 out of 10 times they don't even own them, but sometimes they do. That's why I say your expectations have to be your own. That's first and foremost. So you still want it decent, but you don't necessarily need to go crazy. That being said, what do you want to do with the car? Like, do you want to drive it? If I do a 4-wheel drive off-road Jeep, we don't do crazy paint jobs, because you're going to scratch it, you're going to chip it, you're going to get brush rash. You're probably going to bring it back in a couple of years with a big ding in it. Don't spend that kind of money on the paint job. However, because of what you're doing with a vehicle like that, don't just kind of quickly patch a floor. Maybe make it as solid as you can. You see, put your focus into that, because you know, you start trashing through the woods and bouncing up and down and hitting trees, rocks. You don't want things breaking and letting go. They will anyway. It's just part of that hobby. But in this case, we don't worry about that too but you still need it to be solid. So how much horsepower do you want? I've noticed, this is something I've noticed lately, and it's a big thing. Everybody wants 600-700 horse. And then it dawns on me that the Hellcat is what, 707 horse. I haven't driven one, but I've been lucky enough to have been in one, and the owner drove it, and I asked him how he liked it. And the one he had before was, I believe, an SRT 8, which is a little more of a resto mod. And he said to me he liked the other one better, and I think it had like 600 horse, 5 something. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, he goes, you could get in the car and drive it. He goes, so now I've got this beast with the double clutch, and it's hard to drive. And he goes, if you go for a little tour, he goes, oh, it's a blast. He goes, but if you go driving around all day with a group, it's not a fun car to drive because you've got all this horse. The clutch is kind of it's a clutch. Like I jumped in the car just to see, and it's definitely, like he said, you know, it's not a comfort vehicle by any means. It's a hot rod, and you drive it like that. Most of the bodies in these cars, Dodge, GM, I imagine Ford as well, you're pretty safe up to maybe 450, 500 horse. You start going beyond that, you're going to tear stuff up. So if you're expecting 600-700 horse, we're doing frame ties. In the case of some of the Ford products, we're going to re-weld and box in with Fox body Mustangs. They've got the trailing arm that comes up to the body. We've pulled those tabs right off the frame. And that's with stock 302s, jamming cams, and, you know, making them go fast as the track. So, and I'm talking back in the 90s. So now you take these cars, they're so much older, and you're going to put all this tech in. We're going to do 600-700 horse. You're going to twist up that car. That's a reality. And I know it sounds like, yeah, but I really want big horse. And I mean, the reality is, this car with 300 horse was decent. Stock, it probably came with 2 something. If you get this up to 400 horse with a 4-speed, you can barely keep the car on the road if you flog on it. So you probably think you need it because you saw it in a magazine or on TV. You don't. But if you want it, people will build it for you, including me, definitely. I did a dart last year. The guy had a crazy 340 in it with a lot of stuff done. And he was talking about this bigger engine. And I guess the engine builder told him, if you're not doing too much to the body, and it was an H-code car, so they're supposed to be a little more rigid, I believe he said. But anyway, I just did the body and paint. But I guess the engine builder told him, he goes, if you go over, I think it was 400, might have been 500. He goes, at some point, if you actually get traction in a dart and you're pulling that kind of power out of a 340, he said, you're gonna start doing this to the car. What happens is slowly the welds start coming undone. Now some guys will say, but then you frame tie it. Well, that's true for drag racing. But sometimes when you frame tie a car, that's where you put connectors between the front and the back. What happens is you make it stiff, other things don't move. You can also start popping welds. Now with a race car, you don't care. With a stock car, a road car, you probably don't want that. That being said, on a Mopar, there's places where you can add in pieces as opposed to frame tying them. On a Mopar, you can box in the corners. There's a few lift spots. Now some cars, like the Hemi cars, have that from the factory. So you can add that kind of stuff in. So it'll still have some flex, but it won't tear itself apart. Now with these cars, they make frame connectors that bolt, because these have like half a frame. They're kind of an oddball. The rest is unibody. But then the frame connector bolts to the front, goes to the back. It can be welded on. Well, now they got kits where they bolt into the frame. You got to drill and whatnot. So we're going to be doing that soon. That'll be fun. We'll probably do some videos on that if I can. I'm doing that at someone else's shop, so we'll see. You can also put them in and weld them in solid. You can do a lot of stuff. Now with these cars, you can do that. Now the nice thing with the bolt-in is you can take them off. And the ones that weld at the back, but they bolt to the front. That way, if you wreck the front, you can replace the front frame, which you gotta do. Now, you can get away with 400 horse in this car easily. I have a feeling the way the 350 in this is built, it's probably somewhere in the vicinity of 400. And the car's a little monster. You really don't need a whole lot more power than this. And even if you think you do, you probably don't. But you can. So again, expectations. If you're just going to cruise around town, do some burnouts and have some fun, this car, the way it's sitting right now, it's got Hotchkiss springs in the back. You've got adjustable Bilsteins in the front, because with the 18s you didn't want tire rub. The engine's a 350 Pontiac built with a cam, and something to do with the head, so I know there's other stuff done to it. It's very potent. It's a very healthy car, and honestly, if we go more power, the car can't take it. We'd have to tub it and resto mod suspension. If that's not how you're using the car, you probably don't want to spend that. Now, on the other car that we're going to be doing in the future, the one I mentioned, we're doing an independent 4-link from, I think it's Q1A. We're going to do frame ties in it, all that stuff, and it all comes together as a kit. Upgraded brakes, suspension. The whole system is almost $10,000. So is the car going to be awesome? I don't know. How much better it'll be than this one to handle? Probably some, but these cars aren't going to be on the track, right? That's $10,000 worth of body work that you could have done. So again, expectations. Something that we see a lot in the trade, a guy will come in and he'll try to like do the body work as cheap as he possibly can. He'll dump $20,000 under the hood. And like I say, in this case, this other car I'm talking about, it's a 67 Camaro SS convertible. We're going to do 10 grand worth of suspension just in parts on that car. It sounds like a lot. I guess it is. I wouldn't put it in my own car. I don't think it's worth it. Not the way I drive, right? To me, though, a hopped up engine is great. Just again, 5, 6, 7, 8 grand is usually more than these cars will need. If you go 20 plus, and there's nothing wrong with that, but start with the foundation of the house when you build it. Make sure your body's sound enough to do what you're putting under the hood. So again, if you get into the hobby, know your expectations ahead so you know how to judge and what to do. Start talking to guys. Talk to guys that are into it. If you're a Mustang guy, go talk to some of the Mustang guys. See what they're doing, what you have to do. Most car guys will have 2 or 3 projects. So, you know, the guy will have one that's like a race car and it'll be crazy. And then he'll have this one and he'll have the other one. He'll get carried away telling you about the best one. Ask him about the one he drives the most. So that's something to know, because if you want to actually drive the car, especially if you're only going to have one, that's definitely important. And usually it's not the extreme built car that gets driven. It's usually something docile, 300-400 horse, more than enough. Anyway, perspective is important. Know your expectations. Be prepared to spend money. Buy a better car up front. You don't have to spend as much money fixing it, and at the end it'll be cheaper. But that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed the video and got something out of it. Cheers.